Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Please note that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the legislative chambers and that an external defibrillator is available at the back wall of the legislative chamber. Please stand for the pledge. First item of business is the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First item of business on this agenda is A and B. Item A being the approval of minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, January 30th, 2024. Item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Do I have a motion for approval?
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. Vote, please.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next, we have our resolutions, resolutions C through H. Was there anybody here to talk about resolutions C through H before I ask for a vote? Oh, okay. If not, we'll go ahead and vote. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan to approve and adjourn.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
To
Which
read what?
resolutions? Are you on the Board of Commissioners or?
No, this is equalization resolutions.
I do want to speak about the quit claim deed. That's not a resolution.
About what, Larry?
Item F.
Oh, at the Board of Commissioners, Larry.
So Larry, we're currently on pages 2 and 3 of the whole agenda under Board of Equalization. They're going to vote on the Board of Equalization resolutions.
Okay, I do want to speak on one of those now.
Which one, Larry?
I believe it's number F. Haven't had time to research it that well, but last night I found an item on there regarding a quit claim deed where things were mixed up because the Omaha Land Banks.
Larry, that's not the, sorry, Mr. Chair. Larry,
Yeah.
that's item F on Board of Commissioners. We're on Board of Equalization right now.
Okay, well.
Larry, I'm gonna need you to-
Okay, I do want to clarify something from the past.
Larry, I'm going to
But
need
I
you to
was-
sit down. We're about to vote on
I don't
resolutions
want to
for
miss.
equalization.
I don't want to miss it because this is equalization.
Yes, Larry, we're about to vote.
Something needs to be explained because it comes up again in that next item. That
Which we're going to get to in a minute. Larry.
your assessments person made a statement a few weeks
This is not open
ago
forum on assessments, Larry. This is about resolutions C
about
through
they pay
H.
the tax.
I'm going to need you to sit down, please,
But when I
Larry.
read the documents,
I'm gonna
it
need you to sit
doesn't
down, please,
prove that
Larry.
anybody paid the tax.
Deputy,
So this is one of those things
Larry, I need
you've
you to sit down,
eliminated
please.
from citizens' comments altogether.
all right. Thank you, Larry.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, we're going to vote on C through H,
And C through H and
including adjournment.
Yep. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, now we'll jump into the Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Here. First item is item 1AB, A being approval of minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, and B, approval of claims submitted to payment process through Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Do I have a motion and a second for approval?
Second.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. You had a comment on this? Which one?
Yes.
Yeah, which one of the two? A or
The
B?
minutes from last week.
Okay.
Thank you. Ken Anderson, Irvington. I'm asserting that last week's meeting was held illegally due to the violation of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, specifically that in the annotations for Section 84-1408, annotations say that the public meetings law is broadly interpreted and liberally construed to obtain the objective of openness in favor of the public. And the action that you took on the 23rd of January removed from your agenda the only compliancy to this particular phrase in the statute. Let me read it again. Broadly interpreted and liberally construed. You have no further items on your agenda that complies with this specificity here. Broadly interpreted and liberally construed. Everything else that remains in the agenda now is a narrow interpretation and a strict construence of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, but what about the minutes specifically? Do you have comment on?
I assert that you're approving the minutes of an illegal meeting.
Okay,
Because
but
of
the
this
substance of the
violation.
minutes, I need you to comment on that because that's what we're actually approving. So if you think something's incorrect in the minutes or something needs to be revised.
An illegal meeting can be called null and void.
Okay,
by
but
the
this is not
courts.
an open forum about the Open Meetings Act. This is about the minutes. So
About the minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
as you approve the minutes of an illegal meeting.
is there anything else you'd like to state regarding
That's
the
it.
minutes? I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll vote on A and B.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll jump into our consent agenda, items A through F. Is there any comments on any of those? Commissioner Kavanaugh?
On item F, and this might be following up on something that Larry was bringing up earlier, I'm reading this, and it does give a legal description of the property. This is a resolution to authorize the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners to execute a quitclaim deed conveying Douglas County apparent interest in the specified real property to the OMLB, which I think is the land bank, if I'm correct there. And I'm just looking in here, it gives a legal description of the property, but I don't see that it lists the actual address. And I was wondering, just for the public record, if we could get the actual address of this piece of real estate, because if I am looking for south 44 feet of the north, 132nd feet of the east, 130-foot block 25, I don't know where that's at. And so I don't know if there's someone here that could give it. It is submitted by Tim Dolan from the Douglas County Attorney's Office, and so maybe the county attorney could shed some light on this. Just the address.
Teresa, your County Attorney's Office. I don't have the address off the top of my head. What I can tell the board is this is a correction. There was an error made when the property was initially transferred, and so we're simply trying to correct that error. Douglas County doesn't have an interest in the property.
We didn't have an interest before, and we don't have an interest now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the property was conveyed to the Omaha Land Bank, and I direct the board to the third whereas in the resolution, and it documents that there was an error in the transfer and that when the deed was issued, it conveyed it to both the Land Bank and Douglas County. And so we're simply trying to quitclaim deed the Douglas County's erroneous interest back to the Land Bank.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it clear in my own mind. Did we originally have an interest in this property, and then the conveyance was somehow defective, and now we're correcting the conveyance?
I can't go back too many transfers from memory, so I can just tell you about the most recent. The most recent is there was an error and we shouldn't have gotten that interest, and we're simply trying to correct that.
Okay, so again, I'm just trying to clarify this. We do not have a legal interest in this property currently, and we're correcting that in the original transfer. Is that correct?
Yes, if you look at the be there further resolved, it says the board recognizes that Douglas County does not have a legal or factual basis for claiming an interest in the property.
Okay. But we don't know where this property is from an address point of view. It is simply legally defined here, right?
I do not have the address.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Any other consent agenda items? Which consent agenda would you like to speak to, Larry?
Have you changed the rule on consent agendas? It used to be that if you opened it, then it's open to the public. Has that been changed?
You can speak specifically to
All
a
right,
consent agenda
specifically
item.
to number F.
Number F?
Yes.
Okay.
On a late night reading last night, I couldn't help but think about the comedy skit for Wimpy Burger. I'll gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today. When I read through the documents on that, there were like 44, 45 pages. Things changing hands back and forth. The gist of it is, it's outside of the city limits. And the county or the Omaha Land Bank had no authority in that, so they had to issue a quitclaim deed to the county, I believe it was. I've got most of those pages here if you care to read them. But my issue is going through the different land value changes in the history of that property. When it changed hands to correct the quitclaim deed, the values changed again, down to zero again, so that the land bank didn't have to pay taxes. But if the land bank buys it, this gentleman implied a couple weeks ago that whoever buys it pays the tax, not the seller if he was tax exempt. This property was formerly tax exempt. You established a new value, but the land bank doesn't pay it because that new value is zero. When they get ready to transfer it, the new value is set at a much higher thing. And yes, maybe a new buyer that's not tax exempt will pay the tax, but not the former tax exempt property. And this gentleman led us to believe that they all paid the tax. And he needs to explain that a tax exempt organization that gets rid of the property pays back property taxes on that property, because he implied that they do. Would we assess a new owner last year's property tax values, which you said in these documents, 23 and 24, you set the values for that. And it's not cheap, but all of a sudden it's no longer valued at zero. So he needs to kind of explain the process, because it sounds a little bit like, I don't know, fishy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on consent agenda items?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Is there someone here with an interest in this property?
I do not believe so.
No? Okay.
All right. If not, we'll vote.
So, Mr. Chair, I did not get didn't hear a motion or a second on
Okay.
this one.
Motion and second? I thought we did, yeah. Otherwise, Rogers, motion, Morgan, second.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next, we'll go into item 3 of the agenda, recognitions and proclamations. The first one is a recognition of John Deasis, who worked for the Douglas County Department of Corrections for 26 years. I don't believe he is here today, but we thank him for his service of 26 years in the Department of Corrections. We also have a recognition within the Douglas County Health Department. We do have Dr. Hughes here to help us with this recognition, as well as the employee here that we will recognize shortly.
Good morning, Lindsay Hughes, Director at Douglas County Health Department. We have a retirement that is happening in our department. Ms. Sunday Uribe, who is my executive secretary, and she will be retiring on Friday, which is 26 years to the day that she started with Douglas County. She spent her first few years at the 911 center before coming over to Douglas County Health Department, where she's been for, I think it's 20 years, right? So that is a pretty astounding length of time, and we are so grateful for her commitment, for all of the work she's done. For those of you who don't know, Sunday has pretty much been the glue that holds the Board of Health together, and making sure that the Board of Health is happening each month without a hitch, and making sure that well, making sure that I eat and and get things done, and making sure our contracts are going through. She's just had her hand really in a lot of the really, really important work that happens in our department, and we're so grateful for all of those years, and we wish her a very, very happy retirement, and know that it is very well earned. I'm going to read the resolution for her retirement, and then if she has anything she'd like to say, I'll invite her up. All right, so resolved, whereas Douglas County, Nebraska recognizes that its employees are the county's most important asset and resource for providing quality service to the citizens of Douglas County, whereas the county wishes to recognize Sunday Uribe as of the Douglas County Health Department on her retirement and dedicated service of 26 years to Douglas County, Nebraska. Now, therefore, be it resolved. You can't tell she's excited. Be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that the county recognizes Sunday Uribe for her dedicated service to the citizens of Douglas County and thankfully presents this resolution as testimony thereof, dated the 6th day of February, 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sunday, would you like to say a few words?
I do. Working for the county, I have had some spectacular bosses and a lot of fantastic people that I've worked with, including the Board of Health and the county board. And I want to thank all of you for letting me help with all the county business. So thank you very much. Okay.
Motion by Rogers, second by Borgeson. Oh, go ahead.
Sunday we did last month, but on the Board of Health and those that are not here, I want to wish you well in your retirement. You know, when Dr. Poore retired, we named a lot of things that she did, but being in that seat right outside the door, you experienced it just as much as the director. So you went through, as she went through H1N1, Ebola, SCARS, and now you ended with the worldwide pandemic. So your retirement is well earned, and wish you well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Commissioner Borgeson?
Yeah, Sunday, back when I was on the Board of Health and you started there, one of the things that I appreciated is what you're demonstrating today is your smile. And you never acted like it was a chore to do work, come to work. You enjoyed what you did, and it really did show. And we appreciate everything that you have done for the county, especially for the health department. But geez, go enjoy your retirement, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle, then Morgan.
Yeah. So I know we've never met, but I think your shoes are over here from where you just jumped out of them because you're so excited from leaving. So, but I wanted to say that as someone who's in the health professions too, 20 years is a long time, and you've seen a lot of transition ranging not only from the disease processes that you've been through the health department, but also going through record keeping and all that. I mean, it's quite a career. One thing you said was you thanked the county for, quote, letting you help. It's like that attitude really is going to be missed. So it's greatly appreciated. Like Dr. Hughes said, I've worked with folks like you that are the glue that hold the place together, and so you'll be greatly missed, and thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Cindy, just want to thank you so much for your service, and I'm sorry you're so sad today. But thanks a lot, and enjoy the future.
All right. Sunday, if you want to come around and shake our hands so we can thank you, and then we'll take a group picture.
You should go up there and jump in. Oh, no. Yes, she's going to want one of them. Yeah, you should jump up.
Okay, we ready? Got it, thank you. Thank you, guys.
After the last one, we'll vote on. And, well, there was a motion, a second for these first two, I believe, right? So we'll vote on those, and then we'll do item C.
Okay, please vote. Motion passes 7-0.
Our last recognition or proclamation is item C, which I'll pass to Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution reads, whereas in 1776, people envisioned the United States as a new nation dedicated to the proposition stated in the Declaration of Independence, that all men were created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas African Americans suffered enslavement, were first brought involuntarily to the shores of the United States as early as the 17th century, and whose ancestors subsequently faced the injustices of lynch mobs, segregation, and denial of the basic rights of citizenship. And whereas in the face of injustices, people of goodwill of all races in the United States have distinguished themselves with a commitment to the noble ideas on which the country was founded, and fought courageously for the rights and freedoms of African Americans and others. And whereas many African Americans lived, toiled, and died in obscurity, never achieving the recognition those individuals deserve, and yet paved the way for future generations to succeed. And whereas African Americans such as Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, Clara Brown, Ralph Bunche, Shirley Chisholm, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Jackie Robinson, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, and the Greensboro, North Carolina Four, the Tuskegee Airmen, Muhammad Ali, Ella Fitzgerald, and Edith Savage Jennings, along with many others who worked against racism to achieve success and to make significant contributions to the economic, educational, political, artistic, athletic, literary, scientific, and technological advancements of the United States. And whereas the February birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass inspired the creation of Negro History Week through the efforts of author Dr. Carter G. Woodson, considered to be the father of Black history, eventually to become Black African American History Month, a month specifically set aside to recognize the heritage and achievements of Black people in the United States. And whereas Black History Month 2024's theme focuses on African Americans and the arts, the African American influence has been paramount in visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. Now therefore be resolved by this Board of County Commissioners in Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board does hereby proclaim February to be Black African American History Month, and encourages every resident to recognize the importance of February as an opportunity to reflect our complex history while remaining hopeful about the path ahead and commemorating the tremendous contributions of African Americans to American history. I move the approval.
Motion by Rogers, second by Morgan. And we'll vote. Do you have a comment on this?
Please.
Okay.
Liquor Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Since this is the last time I'll probably get to address the body, I want to add some people into this resolution and ask you to change the wording to a more suitable wording for the spirit of our Constitution and the spirit of 1776. I'll tell you why. I maybe have that much Indian blood in me, and I maybe have that much black blood in me. There was an Indian treaty signatory before the Revolution. Last name was Store. So that implies somebody with the name Store canoodled with an Indian. My dad's side of the family had original fathers in Upper Freehold County, New Jersey, which was a freed slave conclave. Also, probably on the highway. They lived there. They farmed there. They fought on the Revolutionary War from there. And some of them had maybe black blood. I was going through the family history book, and there's a Noah Storer that was black. Oh my God, I was shocked. But you know, my dad was dark complected. My mother was dark complected. I think she was more Indian. I think he was possibly more black. But he reminded me of one of the famous football players that was Indian, Jim, I don't know. But he also reminded me of from Mexico, the warrior for freedom. He helped build and maintain a railroad across Iowa, and some of his relatives helped too. He worked on extra gangs with all sizes, shapes, colors of people. He even fought with some of them. He got the job in Creston, Iowa as the section foreman. On Saturdays, he'd take me with him, and I was just a shaver. We'd go up to the bar and talk with some people, and we'd knock on doors. Some of them were Spanish, and some of them were black. And we had fun conversations. There was no racism that I knew of. We weren't aware of it, but I was old enough, but I didn't see it. Okay. One of his favorites, he started a railroad in about the 20s, and one of his favorites goes way back, Joe Louis. Big idol for everybody, and a big hero, veteran. But we don't hear his name or see his name on here. That should be, because an awful lot of Americans adored him, but we don't talk about that. You're probably not old enough, I guess. But please, go back and change this, because the way I read it, it's still part of that diversity, equity, and inclusion mantra that is a cultural Marxism. You can read about it in this book. An awful lot of people like this book and believe it. Marxism does not belong in this country or in the resolutions of this body. You swore an oath, not to anybody but the Constitution of the United States. And if you don't want to honor that, then you should voluntarily step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. We'll go back to the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, next item of business is presentations. We have one presentation on legislative update, for which Marco Samentine from County Administration will present on 3 bills, and then we will take commentary on those 3 bills.
Commissioners, Marco C. Martin, Douglas County Administration. Before you, you have, it's one item. We have 3 bills should be reflected in that item. 2 of the bills, or 2 of the legislative items are, the recommendation is to oppose, or that's what is the request that has been put on the agenda, and then there's one of them is a request of support. I will just do a really brief overview of Commissioner Garcia. Do you want me to go through the oppose or the support one first?
Just take it as listed on the agenda, so if you want to start with the support one.
Okay, so the support one. So the first one that you'll be looking at, this is the support one. This is LR 287CA. Excuse me, LR 287CA. And this was introduced by Senator Kavanaugh. It is a constitutional amendment to require the legislature to compensate political subdivisions for any locally imposed revenue source that is reduced or eliminated by the legislature. It has been assigned to the government committee, and actually I learned this morning that a hearing has been scheduled for 2/15. So a hearing scheduled for 2/15, that is LR 287CA. And just some really quick background on this bill, it actually would require the state, so it's a constitutional amendment, but it would require the state to provide replacement revenue if a locally imposed source of revenue is reduced or eliminated. So if we had a revenue that was removed by the state, we would then receive some type of replacement revenue or source from the state. So this is being recommended for support by Mr. Kelly. And according to my notes, NACO Nebraska does support this bill. That's the one support item, LR 287CA. The next item I have on my list is this is to oppose. I will go on to LB 1357, LB 1357. It was introduced by Senator McDonald. It's currently assigned to the Judiciary Committee. The hearing has not been set yet for this bill. It would prohibit camping on certain property owned by political subdivisions. And again, it's pretty straightforward. That's my note on it. It's bill prohibits camping on political subdivision property, including unauthorized homeless tent encampments. The bill actually provides that the violation of it would be a Class 3 misdemeanor. It also includes language in the bill that any damage to that property is to be paid for by the person that made the damage, so expenses to repair. My notes on it are that the bill is being supported by the DCSO, and NACO Nebraska does oppose it. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. The DCSO is the Sheriff's Office. I use that acronym. My apologies to the board. The remaining item on there is LB 1375, 1375. It was introduced by Senator Lowe at the request of the governor. Changes the powers and duties of county planning commissions and county boards relating to conditional use permits and special exemptions. It's been assigned to the government committee. That's LB 1375. There is a hearing this week on 2/7. That's tomorrow. And actually, Mr. Holm, who is our Environmental Services Director, is here to speak to the bill. But super high level, I'll just give the board background on it, is it really pertains to Planning Commission's duties. It strikes the current requirement to hold public hearings on conditional use permits and special exceptions. And it instead replaces the public hearing requirement with just to receive public comment. Rather than a public hearing. So again, Mr. Holm is here to speak to the bill, and he can answer any questions you may have. NACO Nebraska does oppose it. And those are the three items. Chairman Garcia.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll jump to Mr. Holm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. Just a couple of points about this. The way we are reading this is that this really takes away the public hearing authority, period. And that's a very, from our standpoint, that is not a good thing for public policy. This board, it basically would then shunt all public hearing to this body, which meets at 9 o'clock in the morning, which makes it very inconvenient for folks to be here potentially. Planning Commission meets at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, and typically that's a much more convenient time. But just the basis of having a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission is really kind of a critical piece of the process for people to be heard on applications that come before the county. The other piece of the legislation that is problematic and troubling is that it designates a 90-day shot clock on applications, on certain applications. And that is also problematic because especially if the public hearing aspect goes away, then it means that first public hearing is in front of you, and that shot clock is ticking. I mean, we're already halfway through the shot clock normally by the time it's going to get to you. And so very problematic if we have issues that we need to, let's say you had to refer it back to the Planning Commission. We've missed the shot. We're at the end of the shot clock already by the time we get through that. So we are very much opposed to it. I know in some of the discussion with my colleagues in other counties, there are a number of other counties that I believe will probably be in opposition to it. NACO is in opposition to it. Happy to address any other questions.
Mr. Holm, appreciate it. We're going to jump to questions or comments by commissioners on any of the three bills listed here. Then we'll jump to.
I have a comment in Sorry.
Yeah, no, I did see that your hand has been up for a while. So first, let me hit commissioners, and then Carolyn, I'm going to go to you after that. Commissioner Borgeson, and then Kavanaugh.
Okay, thank you. I'll just run down. I appreciate Senator John Kavanaugh introducing LR 287CA and hope that the board would support this. As we had long discussions last week about legislation that the state is talking about various ways to limit our ability to provide our services, such as eliminating the inheritance tax without any replacement revenue, capping us at a certain amount that we aren't going to be able to go above. Those are things that impede us to do what we are supposed to do for the citizens of Douglas County. So I appreciate the senator introducing this and think we should definitely support it. I'll jump real quick to LB 1375 and just agree with what Mr. Holmes said. NACO had a discussion about this at our legislative meeting, and there were many comments from various commissioners and supervisors from across the state that said exactly what you said. And so I would hope that we would oppose that, anything taking away the process that's in place here at the local level. And then LB 1357, again, I hope that we oppose it. I have been a strong advocate for many, many years about not criminalizing social issues, and homelessness is one of them. There are lots and lots of good people in this community that are working on the homelessness issue, and many, many better ideas than criminalizing homelessness. The fact that we would, again, charge somebody with a misdemeanor sends, I mean, it would just be on a downward spiral farther than where this individual is at. And besides the effect on the humanness of it, this also affects county taxpayers. Because just say that they're charged with this misdemeanor, they're due in court, they don't show up, they have a fine, they don't pay it, and then the next thing you know, we need more law enforcement to go out and round them up because they didn't show up, and now they're in our jail, and we know how costly somebody being in our jail is versus us working with the community to really try to get to the root causes of the homelessness issue. And real quick, I'll come back because I have a comment that about an activity that I did a few years ago down on the corner of 24th and Cumming with Elijah Ali, who is a longtime community advocate for the homelessness, and his wife, Wanda Gruber. And I sat there on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with them, meeting folks that were homeless to find out more about what their needs were. And me walking into this, I had the typical stereotype that, you know, they wanted to do that. They didn't care. They didn't want to work. And I learned so much from these individuals that opened up so freely to me during these 2 days. And I'll come back.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll jump to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I would also generally support this overall resolution, but specifically on LB 1357, prohibit camping on certain property owned by the political subdivision. Well, I'm a camper. I've camped all over the state. I don't know. I probably camped on public property, not designated as a campsite. I don't know that that's a crime or should be a crime. I don't think it's a crime now. I'm reminded in here in the context of the homeless question of a quote from Will Rogers, who said, you know, it's not a crime to be poor in America, but it might as well be. And this is a good step towards that direction of criminalizing, you know, those people unfortunate enough not to have a permanent roof over their heads. I've received numerous comments from constituents, including, please put my name on record in support of the board's opposition to LB 1357. Let's not criminalize misfortune, mental illness, or addiction. Let's address the lack of community response and resources when it comes to housing instability and community health. I don't think I could put it better. This is just a bad response to an unfortunate condition, but it could also include, you know, regular campers out there in the great state of Nebraska, which is, by the way, a great place to camp, who are just unfortunate enough to be on a piece of property owned by a political subdivision and plant their tent or have a sleeping bag. I mean, this almost specifically describes what me and countless of my friends and relatives have done for generations in this state. So on a lot of different levels, this thing is just not well thought out, and I'm glad to join in the board's opposition to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavanaugh. Commissioner Boyle?
I couldn't agree. It's on?
Now, there we go.
Okay. I couldn't agree more with my colleagues. I mean, Commissioner Borgeson really nailed it on the head, as did Commissioner Cavanaugh. First, of course, this is going to be a financial cost to the county. So if you look at it without even considering the people involved, it's a bad financial decision for the county to support this. But second, again, to criminalize social issues is really just bad for humanity. And so we really have to be better than that. And so I would suggest we can oppose this resolution, but where the rubber hits the road is contacting your state senator and make them know how you feel about this. So I also strongly oppose this particular bill, which is LB 1357.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Did you have one, Commissioner Friend?
I did. I have are we going to take all of these at once, or are we going to individually vote? What point of procedure here? Are we voting as a whole, or are we going to vote individually on them?
If there's consensus to do the bracket, we can do a bracket, but if there's a request to do them separately, we can do them separately.
Yeah, look, no surprise, obviously. There could be 10, 20, 30 bills in front of me. There could be 1, 2, or 3. And it always comes down to the unintended consequences when you read the language. Let me give you an example. A legislative resolution 287CA, you're actually asking the citizens of the state of Nebraska to change the Constitution of the state of Nebraska. Now, we're unique. Everybody knows it. Everybody in this room knows it. Most people know it. We're unique in the United States. I think Maine is the only other one. We have a unicameral legislature. So it's always been very important to me to make sure that the citizens of the state of Nebraska have an opportunity to vote on legislation, to make their voice heard on legislation, because they are the second house. So I've always had difficulty with legislative resolutions. And this one is no exception. And let me tell you why. Unless I'm mistaken, I like this resolution. So if I'm sitting around, I just read it on its face, it looks great. But when you dig in and you realize what you're asking the second house to do, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't differentiate between what we actually have to provide at the county level, or what the state makes us provide, and what we don't have to provide. So we're essentially saying that the legislature can, if they reduce or eliminate a locally imposed revenue source previously available to a political subdivision, us, the legislature shall appropriate the funds each fiscal year to compensate that political subdivision for that reduced amount. It doesn't say that the stuff that we make you do. It's always about the unintended consequences. This needs to be flushed out. If I were running the show, and I'm not, I'd say I would dig into this and I would beat the heck out of it on the floor. I would pound it. I'd say, you cannot send to the second house, and consider it a Senate and a House of Representatives type of battle. You cannot send to the second house this piece of legislation. You need to flush it out. They need to know what they're getting. And then when the county actually gets money back, forced from the state based on this resolution, we're going to spend that money that we get back any way we want. It doesn't matter whether it's mandated or not mandated. We have 22 non-mandated services. We could, why doesn't the state just come out and say, look, for the stuff that we mandate, you will be reimbursed? That'd be pretty clear. People understand that. They can read it. That's one thing. Oh, I only have 40 seconds left. The second thing is in LB 1357, I agree with my colleagues, a class 3 misdemeanor, I question the reimbursement. Who's going to pay that back? We're going to go out and try to track down all these people, and then we want reimbursement from them. Who's going to do that? And how do we get the money? The third is 1375. The biggest question I have, the biggest question I would have if I was debating this, I'd say, why has this bill been brought to the legislature? What problem are we trying to solve? Are we trying to create a problem? Unintended consequences. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Otherwise, we're going to jump to Carolyn on Zoom because I saw her raise her hand in between the last topic and this topic. I just want to make sure I didn't miss her at some point. So Carolyn, I'm going to let you go, and then we'll jump to people in the chamber.
Great, awesome. Thanks for helping me through the the process here. 4 minutes?
Yes, 4 minutes.
All right, good morning, board members. My name's Carolyn Ryan. I'm a program coordinator at Heartland Family Service. We're one of the largest providers of housing and supportive services in Douglas County and have been for the last 150 years. We also oppose 1375 and encourage elected leaders at every level to do the same. I wanted to share a little bit of context around this bill and some of the stigmatizing rhetoric surrounding it. Share a bit about some research-based strategies that we deploy to address homelessness, and invite the board to use this as an opportunity to reaffirm and deepen your commitment to ongoing conversations with providers like us to address the root causes of homelessness. So, as you know, last month, Senator McDonald introduced this bill, and shortly thereafter, the Douglas County Sheriff's Department started disseminating some help for the homeless propaganda, which depicted people experiencing or perceived to be experiencing homelessness as predatory criminals. Numerous cities across the city have heard cases which would, where plaintiffs that experience homelessness assert that their constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment are violated by the criminalization of homelessness. And courts across the country have determined that yes, especially within municipalities where there's demonstrably not enough shelter and not enough affordable housing, it is cruel and unusual punishment to forcibly incarcerate someone for up to 3 months for trying to exist and survive outdoors. So a lot of the rhetoric that you see around bills like this across the country, including here in Nebraska, shared by the Sheriff's Department, is very stigmatizing. It stereotypes all people experiencing homelessness, which are, as was shared, a diverse group of people with diverse experiences, as criminals, as predators, as people that are mentally ill, as people that are struggling with substance use disorders. And while that's true of some people in the homeless population and in the general population, it's not true of all of them. So, stereotyping a diverse group of people has never helped any community solve any social problem, but history has shown us how dangerous it can be when used by states to marginalize and oppress and take populations. So regarding homeless responses that work, rather than tyrannize people experiencing homelessness, providers like Heartland implement research-based interventions to end homelessness. We first work to build client trust and center the values of empowerment, equity, and choice because we know that stigma is one of the biggest barriers to accessing care.
1 minute.
And because people experiencing homelessness are statistically more likely to be victims of violent crime, we center trauma-informed care in everything we do. Part of the misconception around homeless services is that we're heavy-handed and give out more than what's required. I just want to share that at Heartland, we have a variety of programs designed to serve people at various levels of need. Some people might just need a compassionate conversation during a traumatic time. They're trying to exit a domestic violence situation. They need some help problem solving. We have diversion programs. We have programs for people escaping domestic violence and sex trafficking. We also have homeless prevention programs. And then for folks that need a higher level of care or a more sustained engagement to escape and permanently exit homelessness, we have rapid rehousing and permanent supported housing. All of these programs at all levels need more support and funding.
Time.
In addition,
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll move to individuals in the chamber.
Does this work, Commissioner? Sweet. It's too fancy. This reminds me of grade school, but fancier. Members of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, my name is Erin Feitstinger, representing the Women's Fund of Omaha today, 1111 North 13th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102. We support your resolution to oppose LB 1357, and I'd like to provide some facts about evictions for your consideration of this item, because evictions most often precede homelessness. Women are consistently overrepresented in eviction court. In Douglas County, over 60% of tenants in courtroom 20 are women. The number of women evicted is 16% higher than their male counterparts, and that number grows for Black women who are evicted at a rate 36% higher than Black men. 57% of all homeless women report that domestic violence was the immediate cause of their homelessness, whether through needing to leave or through an eviction. Eviction filings in Nebraska are increasing at an alarming pace. In Douglas County in 2023, the number of eviction filings is the highest it's been in 11 years. That's 5,975 eviction filings in 2023. The last highest was 2014 at 5,200. Those filings turn into an eviction judgment 76.4% of the time. Statewide eviction trends are also following a similar increase. The average amount of statewide eviction filings between 2016 and 2019 was around 6,286. In 2022, that number was 8,650, and in 2023, it was 10,989. I don't have a lot of evidence to expect that these trends will change since our community is struggling to help with very little assistance available for our neighbors facing homelessness. So why should we care? Recent research from Princeton University found that 2.9 million U.S. children are under 18 are threatened with eviction, and 1.5 million of those children are ultimately evicted. In Douglas County, we know what that looks like from the Tenant Assistance Project. TAP handled a little over 1,800 cases in 2023, just downstairs right below us in courtroom 20. And those 1,800 households represented 2,147 children. Those already sobering numbers are not representative of the total number of children impacted by eviction and homelessness in this county, because those only account for the households that appeared at their eviction hearing. We also know that children are most at risk for eviction before the age of 5. We know that having children in a rental household is the equivalent for a risk of eviction as falling 4 months behind in rent. I want to be really clear that homelessness is not a personal choice. It is a policy choice. It is our collective failure to provide adequate resources and support. and I'm allowed to say this, but the organizations behind me are probably not, it is incredibly insulting to every single person in this community who spends their time trying to help folks experiencing homelessness, who take on the collective trauma of this community every single day that no one else wants to deal with, to then turn around and undo all of that work by saying, let's just put them in jail instead. I want to be clear that there are a lot of sincere, thoughtful, and compassionate solutions to homelessness, and that this board has actually in the past taken very serious steps toward those solutions. Your dedication to our mental health crisis, your adoption of rental assistance in the earliest days of the pandemic, your attempts to undertake serious criminal justice reform, those are real solutions. LB 1357 is not a solution for homelessness. It is a penalty for it. It will increase housing stability. It will increase homelessness and housing instability for all of our neighbors, and it is also a punishment for our collective inability to take bold steps to address this issue. LB 1357 is not who we are. It is not the best we can be as a community, and we appreciate your opposition to this bill in the Nebraska legislature. Perfect timing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Feichtinger. We'll take the next commentary.
Ken Anderson, Irvington. I am so glad to hear voices of reason coming from you. I especially appreciated what Carolyn said. She was the first to use the word survive. Yes, I was homeless with wife and children. And we were just trying to survive, and we were not littering. We were not a threat to anyone. We were not breaking any other laws. And the word camping is not what we would have used. It's not the terminology we would have used for what we were in. We weren't camping. And if this LB 1357, I should say, is trying to address homelessness without stating the word homelessness, by using the word camping, I don't know how this LB 1357 saw the light of day. But people have to survive. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Next commentary.
Good morning, Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I've been busy down at the state also. And unfortunately, I don't see any of the bills that I'm interested in that you guys have been talking about. But you're supposed to represent us, so you should be legislating and lobbying on the things we ask you to do. I'm going to bring up one that ought to scare the bejesus out of every citizen. Now this session is reminding me of that comedy routine, Who's On First? Because here I am, an unemployed, retired citizen competing with a hired lobbyist and lots of 501c3s that are racing to the microphone to get their more time in against me. I have no chance against all of them. Erin makes a good living at what she does, and she's very polished at what she says. I suspect a lot of the people lining up here trying to beat me probably are of the same thing. Yes, we need that help for people that are homeless. But my God, how many years have you been preaching about it, and there doesn't seem to be a right solution? I think we pay you to do better. But we keep shelling out more money to the people that are lining up behind me. And you guys keep saying, well, what are we going to do when the money stops? you gotta ask the citizens about that. Now, LB 1390 is one of the nationwide efforts to shut citizens down. It can make a criminal out of people like me that question what happened in the 2020 elections that you people will not discuss, that you people deny. All across the state of Nebraska and the country, the election people deny it. They will not look at the evidence. But people like me that keep pushing the issue it's been introduced, it's not scheduled for a hearing yet, can be charged with a crime for challenging it, for spreading fake information. Excuse me? That's not what government's supposed to do. This symbol means Uncle Sam is we the people, and we're pointing the finger at you guys. You can do an emergency proclamation or resolution today to have a full discussion of this and the Open Meetings Act and why you're violating it or not violating it, and bring the county attorney down here because the attorney general refuses. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Other commentary?
Hi, my name is Whitney Gint, 2451 South 38th Street here in Omaha. I am a professor at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and my area of expertise is rhetoric surrounding homelessness, so I really appreciated what Carolyn had to say earlier. And I also appreciated the gentleman who came up here and said we wouldn't have called it camping. Commissioner Kavanaugh, I appreciated you talking about your affinity for camping around the state, but I think we all know that this bill is not aimed at recreational campers. It is aimed at those who are doing so out of necessity, and I think it's really important that we recognize that. People who camp out of necessity may be camping because there's no space in the shelters. They may be camping because they're not allowed in the shelters, or because camping offers a sense of safety and community that they can't find in other spaces. Those who do not camp out of necessity may not see it this way. They may see the camps as an eyesore, or even jump to the conclusion or listen to the sheriff's department rhetoric about this being a threat or a problem for public safety. But the real vulnerability is to the people whose lives have brought them to this necessity. The real threat is to our state if we choose to criminalize homelessness, to treat homelessness as a crime. As you mentioned, it is not a crime to be poor, and it makes no sense to slap a misdemeanor charge on someone whose struggle to survive is causing no real harm to others. In my mind, the real crime is this proposal, and I thank the commissioners for standing in opposition to this legislative proposal.
Thank you.
Good morning. Lisa Vukoff. I am here professionally representing the Metro Area Continuum of Care for the Homeless at 6001 Dodge Street. I'm also testifying here in my own personal capacity as a resident of Nebraska's 5th Legislative District at 5912 Weir Street. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to testify today in support of your resolution to officially oppose Nebraska's Legislative Bill 1357. I have spent my entire adult life advocating on behalf of our neighbors experiencing homelessness. In my 22nd year of housing and homelessness advocacy in our community, I've witnessed tremendous strides in person-centered, housing-first policies that are creating successful outcomes for our community's most vulnerable households. As the representative of our local continuum of care, I am personally responsible for carrying out the annual HUD Continuum of Care Program Notice of Funding Availability, also known as the NOFA, competition. This is the annual competition for very limited federal funds, and it is a highly competitive and performance-based competition. Performance is paramount to increasing these federal resources here locally to address homelessness. Just last week, the awards were announced from the 2023 competition, and we procured an additional $450,000 over last year's awards. Moreover, it was also a record-setting year for the entire state of Nebraska, procuring $16 million across all 93 counties. That's something we should be celebrating today versus why we are here. If we start to criminalize homelessness locally or across the state, local continuums are going to be handcuffed from bringing in additional federal resources, and we risk losing existing projects that have been in our community for decades. We are explicitly asked about our local efforts to combat homelessness in our annual application, and legislation like this will certainly jeopardize that. In addition to the impact on federal funding, incarcerating individuals for a period of up to 90 days will prevent the most vulnerable in our community from actually accessing the supportive housing resources. By federal definition, individuals who have been incarcerated for 90 days lose their homeless status. And now we cannot put them into the very, very critical supportive housing programs that we have available. The $500 fine just adds further harm to folks already dealing with tremendous trauma, a lack of residence, and not to mention the criminal history that will now follow them into any hope for a future leasing agreement. Data confirms that it will cost our community 3 times the amount to criminally charge and incarcerate an individual experiencing homelessness versus providing them with the permanent housing they so desperately need. It will cost taxpayers over $31,000 to incarcerate an individual over a year versus permanent housing, which is $10,000. And that's with supportive services in place to help the household. Housing stability actually saves our local taxpayers money. It's fiscally responsible and it's humane. According to the Omaha Community Foundation's 2021 Affordable Housing Assessment, our metro area lacks an approximate 80,000 units of affordable housing. It only seems fiscally prudent that we invest our local dollars into increasing our stock of available housing versus criminalizing individuals who need it the most. We are doing great things here locally. We at Match, and I on a personal level, ask that you please support the resolution to formally oppose LB 1357. Your neighbors experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Douglas County, as well as the collective of agencies represented here today, ask that you don't further handcuff our ability to house our most vulnerable neighbors.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next commentator.
Hi, I am Jill Lynch Sosa, and I am the executive director for the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And I have a lot of the same information that has been shared here, and I'm really happy with what you all have said. So instead of kind of repeating some of those things, I want to share with you something that just happened recently, about a month ago, with some of my friends over here. They were camping along our fence. It was private property. And we do have a closed property agreement, whatever. And so in the middle of the night, one night, about a month ago, about 3 o'clock in the morning, the police showed up and pulled 12 of them out of the tents in their sleep and arrested them. And because of that, Chewy, who's sitting on Chrissy there, ended up at the Humane Society along with 2 other dogs. It took about 16 hours to get them out once we found out that this had happened. I had actually given them permission to be camping on what I thought was our property. And thank goodness with the city, we were able to get their charges dropped and sealed. But the cost of those 16 hours and the trauma of those 16 hours on top of the difficulties that they already have is something that everybody is still dealing with. In that short amount of time, people will go in and steal things from them. You know, we talk about, gosh, just get a job, do this, the other. Well, and get housing. You need to have IDs. If you don't have your IDs, it is so difficult to get those and just to get into some of these things. One of our neighbors, her car was towed. She lost it. That's one thing I could not help her with. The society paid to bust Chewy out of jail and the other two dogs, those are things, our neighbors don't have money for that. But those pets are their security, not just theirs, everybody that lives in that community. So, yeah, criminalizing homelessness is not the route. We have to be humane. We have to see the dignity in individuals. And sitting down and talking with people, you'll know what the problems are, and then you realize. I think you said, Marion, that you learn the stories, and then you realize it's not just go get a job. It's I have to have IDs. Then I have to have a way to shower and change my clothes. Then I have to get transportation to this job. And our transportation system, let's face it, it's not great if you're trying to get a lot of different areas, and you have to have money for that transportation. And you need all of this before you can even get started. And it's challenging. Everybody's doing such great work, and we try to work together, one person at a time. We can help one person at a time, but I guarantee you, if you get to know these people, you would have a totally different view of what homelessness is and the situation there. So thank you all. Thank you all for what you're doing for the city too. It's a tough job. I know you can't win all the time, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other comments?
Good morning. My name is Emerson David Calderon Lopez. I'm originally from El Salvador, Central America. We're a country, the United States of America says Central America is a country and never had a president before. But the point is, after falling in love with an American citizen and being in this situation, after making over $55,000 a year without worries and at least able to see a whole year in advance, but then you're in this. They rejected your whole self for food stamps when your son is born, and then receive a letter when I'm in this 2024, 2023 position that ineligible alien to be able to get food stamps. But I'm allowed to be in this country until July because I have a next master hearing. So that I now add a new trauma to this, and they get beaten by police dog, rotated 3 times in the ground, and I cannot labor under that table. And if I labor and anyhow I run my social, yeah, I do have a social, thanks to Obama, well, it's a new trauma. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melissa Neuenfeld. My address is 540 North 77th Circle, Omaha, Nebraska. I've never done anything like this before, and I'm terrified to be here. I'm a registered nurse. I work in emergency medicine and mental health care. Because of my frequent contact with my neighbors experiencing homelessness, I was called to do more to serve this population. And about 8 years ago, I started volunteering with the Omaha Street Outreach Team. I was asked to be a member of the Metro Area Continuum of Care for Homelessness Board. And I serve in several other capacities in homeless services as a volunteer. Don't get paid for any of it. I'm currently applying for a grant, first time I've ever done that in my life, to try to apply the nursing process to the problem of people experiencing homelessness and decrease the mortality rate that we're seeing among our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. During my last 8 years of volunteering in homeless services, I have learned that the average life expectancy for a person experiencing chronic homelessness is 55 years. And sadly, that is also the average age of people experiencing homelessness in Omaha, and actually the entire Tri-County Continuum of Care where I serve. The job that gives me money, that keeps my lights on and keeps my rent paid, I work in acute mental health care, and I serve people experiencing a crisis of mental health. Many of the people that I serve are also experiencing homelessness, and for obvious reasons. And my job as a registered nurse is to shine a light on the path to recovery to the people that I serve, and to hold hope and believe in a path to recovery for every single person that I serve. And what I know is that for the people I serve who are experiencing homelessness, that path is housing. Nothing can stabilize in their life until they have those basic human needs met, including housing. And I know that criminal charges are a barrier to the folks that I'm serving to accessing housing and stability and saving their lives. So I just want to thank you for your opposition to LB 1357. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pete Miller, at 5015 North 104th Street. I've been a part of Omaha's street outreach team for 13 years, and for much of that time, I've also worked as a housing case manager, working to get folks off the streets and into their own apartments. As anyone who works in homeless services will tell you, two of the top barriers to housing are criminal history and lack of money. So the idea that you can reduce homelessness by making homelessness a crime with a fine defies logic. Unhoused people are not the problem. Homelessness is the problem. A lack of treatment beds for people struggling with addiction is a problem. A lack of affordable housing is the problem. We don't have enough psychiatrists or therapists. We don't have enough outreach resources. LB 1357 doesn't even pretend to address any of those core issues. Instead, it's trying to make criminals of our neighbors who are struggling the most, who have the least, who are already extremely vulnerable, who need to be allowed the compassion and time it can take for them to build trust with people with resources and services that might actually help them, not the trauma of police raids, fines, criminal charges, and threats of incarceration if they don't get housing. LB 1357 just boggles the mind, and I'm very relieved to hear that you are opposing it. So thank you for opposing it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Alicia Christensen with Together at 812 South 24th Street. I am providing some information about some of the various research and talking points that a lot of people have discussed here for your reference, and I have sources on all of that material too, so just go ahead and reach out to me if you would like some more background information on that as well. We all want to address homelessness in our community and ensure that everyone has a safe, quality, affordable place to sleep each night. Research demonstrates that pairing housing with voluntary wraparound services is a cost-effective way to rapidly end homelessness. Together, like all of the organizations in our continuum of care, use this evidence-based approach to help people exit homelessness and find housing stability in the long term. In contrast, there's no evidence that criminalization helps address homelessness. It only temporarily addresses the visibility of people experiencing homelessness. This approach instead funnels resources into the type of punitive approach that does nothing to help people exit homelessness, and it creates additional barriers by saddling people with fines and criminal records that hurt their employment options, access to housing, and family stability. Criminalization works to trap people in a homelessness incarceration cycle and wastes taxpayer dollars on law enforcement, crisis response services, and emergency health care, instead of investing in long-term solutions and proven strategies. Enacting legislation like LB 1357 would also draw costly legal challenges. The courts have found that similar laws are unconstitutional violations of the Eighth Amendment, as punishing actions that are universal and unavoidable, like sleeping. Punishing these necessities solely because a person has no other option but to engage in these activities in public constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Finally, we know that homelessness is a solvable problem, and we're better off when we work together to solve problems. So I appreciate the Douglas County Commissioner's support for the proven, productive, and cost-effective solutions
used by Together and the metro area continuum of care for the homeless. Thank you for informing our state senators that LB 1357 would undermine these constructive efforts to end homelessness, and we will do our part to inform them of the same. I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can go ahead and email me, but thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jasmine Harris. I am here representing RISE 3555 Farnham, Suite 501, 68131. Just listening to everyone talk about the impact of homelessness and how we should care, you know, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. What I will add is with RISE, we work with individuals who are coming out of incarceration, and we also work with individuals on the pretrial side, so those who are incarcerated pretrial at the county jail through our Justice Study Project that we're working with Harvard University and University of Zurich on that. And seeing that the impact of incarceration already has this cycle that people are in. If we continue to perpetuate these cycles, arresting people, giving them fines that they can't afford anyway, we'll just continue to keep that cycle going. With RISE, our mission is to break generational cycles of incarceration. We have to get to the crux of that, and this is one of those ways that we can stop that cycle of incarceration. When we're looking at people coming out of the state facilities, yes, if you are getting parole, they will not parole you without a place to go. But if you have a mandatory release date, you're released at that gate on that day, whether you have a place to go or not. So when we're working with people through reentry supports, we're having to try to find housing. But because you have a criminal conviction, depending on what that conviction is, you are then rendered to being unhoused. So we fight this all the time. When people continue to go through this cycle of being unhoused, again, you can't get your basic needs met. How am I going to focus on getting a job when I don't even know where I'm going to lay my head or when I'm going to get my next meal? Working with the Justice Study Project, individuals who are on that pretrial side, when we are providing services, we do a needs assessment. The top three needs assessments that we have are low, no income, food insecurity, and unfit housing. So this right here, LB 1357, will just continue to perpetuate that cycle. We will continue to have overcrowded jails, overcrowded prisons, if we continue to render people into these cycles of incarceration. So I ask that you all oppose 1357. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Nicole Ingalls, 7252 North 33rd Avenue, just here as myself. And I want to also support your opposition of 1357. I know that my friends have had a lot of great stuff to say, so I don't want to add to it, but I do want to reiterate that what we need to address homelessness is appropriately funded housing and supportive services, which I don't think has been mentioned enough. As we all know, rents have risen quickly and most quickly at the lowest end of the spectrum, and that housing is often in the poorest of conditions. Meanwhile, we have also had cost of living increase over the board, but the amount of funding available for supportive services from HUD, from the city, from the county, from the state has not increased, which means that wages have not increased for those service providers. I'm not a service provider, so I feel like I can say this without being, it's not about me. They take on that trauma, as Lisa mentioned, of our community, and they're extremely important. And we can't house people without them. And people are more successful in their housing when they have appropriate supportive services, which we do not have enough of. So I'd like to just note that LB 1357 does not provide for any of that. It doesn't provide for services. It doesn't provide to address the myriad reasons why people cannot or do not enter shelter. Chewy, who is adorable, is not allowed in most shelters. And so that keeps people out of shelter. There's no money to build dog kennels. There's no money to provide space for opposite sex couples who are caregivers for one another. And we don't have a place for those folks to stay. So instead of doing anything to address this issue, even if we're not providing permanent housing to address the issue of temporary emergency shelter, LB 1357 doesn't do it. Further, I know that this county board has been very supportive of addressing racial inequities in our community. And we don't have a breakdown of who is unsheltered versus who is sheltered and the racial demographics there, but I can tell you that approximately 30% of our homeless population between the Tri-County area that Match serves is either Black or Native American. Those two groups represent less than 10% of our overall population in the Tri-County area. So by slapping fines and criminal records on people for this issue, or for camping, staying outside, in an area that is already rife with racial disparities, would only make things worse, would not help our goals, and would take us steps back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ijaja Wawite Chante Tanka Wia Rachel Parker. I am a Latidawa'u Latita Uda. My name is Big Heart Woman. My government name is Rachel Parker. It's good that you're here. I am standing here as a person with lived experience today. Recently having experienced homelessness within the last 5 years. I was born unhoused as an Indigenous person. Homeless, no, but unhoused, yes, and I will live that way the rest of my life. I will identify as a member of the unhoused community the rest of my life. My lived experience includes a survivor of DV, addiction, mental health, incarceration, and experience in the foster care system. Now, on paper, I have committed crimes, but I have also rehabilitated. The things in parentheses that you don't see about somebody with lived experiences, I was on probation and I successfully discharged my probation 6 months early. Because as a person of recovery, I got sick of my own stuff. So that was on me to make those changes. And in 5 years, I can tell you, this has been my navigation through the homeless response system. Homeless, to shelter, to sober living, to transitional housing, to an apartment, to my own home just recently. 5 years it took me to get to this point. A lot of hard work, a lot of supports. Today, I am the Training and Lived Experience Coordinator of Reimagine Omaha, a nonprofit that was recently started and founded by frontline workers. I am representative of a lived experience person. So what we do now, there is not funding. So what do? Human-centered approaches, partnering and collaborating with these organizations together, match, to provide trainings, human-centered. We cannot continue to put a Band-Aid over what the real issues are. Now, I'm just my own person. I was able to navigate effectively, but not everybody else is like that. Criminalizing homelessness is not the answer. We are down here we are in the trenches. We are doing the work. We are intentional about the cultural shift. And all of these people in this room are also supportive of that. So I just wanted to identify myself as a lived experience person. I will remain unhoused the rest of my life as an Indigenous person. I will always be a member of that community. Wiblaha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Team is 2709 Dewey Avenue, specifically LB 1357. I'm talking about, I've looked at the wording, and here there's a section for what camping means, but there's no definition of what control and property means. So I think that the way I look at this, if I was a police officer, I could say, well, you're in the county, just simply by being in a political subdivision jurisdiction area. I think that as a law enforcement person, I just say you're in the county and you're not. And you have a tent or a sleeping bag, then you could get arrested. I think that's unfair. And then I also appreciate the comments about, and Commissioner Bergeson, you said that you actually talked to the people and to figure out what their specific situation is. I think that's That's important because homelessness might look the same, but everybody's different. And then also and so when you get into the specifics, then you figure out that everybody's going through something. Somebody pointed out the public transportation, and something like that can be an obstacle. Just public transportation, it's an obstacle, and obviously there's a lot of things other than public transportation. But I really appreciate whoever said that public transportation is an obstacle, because I think that's true. It's real. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Casey Lopez, and I live at 4114 North 23rd Street, Omaha, Nebraska. As some of these other individuals, I've never been to one of these before, and I've never been up here, and so I have not a clue. But first and foremost, I would just like to thank you all for opposing 3157, LB 3157. I am also an individual with shared lived experience. There was many years, many nights that I slept on these streets because I had nowhere else to go. I've been in almost every one of the homeless shelters, and I struggled in my life being an unhoused individual. I am no longer unhoused. The services here in Omaha were sustainable, and they were able to uplift me and get me to a point where I'm on my feet, and I currently am able to give back to the community, to the individuals that we serve in the homeless system and others. And I don't have this long speech or all this important information to give you, other than the fact that I couldn't imagine how much more traumatic it would be to be charged with a crime for just trying to survive. And so I just want to thank you all for opposing this bill.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Other comments on this item, legislative update? Otherwise, we'll take up, Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody for their comments here. This has been very informative. Just so you know, this is tied into a lot of bigger issues that we are involved in. And if you want to actually stay informed on that, stick around today for the discussion of the $30+ million that the county anticipates investing in jailing mentally ill people. That's on top of the tens of millions of dollars that the county invested in jailing children, primarily children of color, in the empty building across the street. These are related to the issues that you're talking about. We lock up people who are poor, people who are of color, people who are mentally ill, and you need to be involved in those discussions if you want to follow the money. Imagine what you could do for the homeless population of Omaha with $30 million. Well, if you stick around today, you're going to hear a discussion of spending that $30 million on locking them up. Many of the homeless, mentally ill, need hospitalization, medical care, not incarceration. The same with children. The same with people with chemical dependency problems. You need to be involved in these discussions. These are building projects. These are not help you projects. And if you want to have an impact on what goes on in this town, particularly all the folks here from the not-for-profits involved in the homeless question, well, where are you on these discussions when the limited resources that we have are channeled into incarceration rather than helping people with their real problems? I urge you to stay involved. I'm glad you're here to talk about this particular bad bill, but I urge you to stay involved on the real questions of resources that go by the wayside. I don't hear from people on those questions. Well, stick around today, because that discussion is going to happen today, and it's been going on for years here. So if you want your voices to be heard and you want to have a real impact on homelessness and mental illness in Douglas County, come and talk about these things sometimes, not some bill down in the legislature which may or may not go anywhere. These are real dollar and cents resources that aren't going to be spent to help anybody who's homeless in Douglas County unless we want to lock them up. So wise up about what's going on here. What's going on here is big money going into building projects to incarcerate people. Does this ring any bells with any of the folks out here? This is what's going on. This is the important thing. Follow the money. Stick around today. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say there's nothing more to add from this end. I just want to say thank you all for you all testifying. I thought today would be pretty routine in regards to opposing it, but I do want to thank you all for, one, crystallizing, I think, the whole situation, and secondly, I think really putting a hard blunt to this effort and efforts like it that could arise in the future. And I think it's going to take us a long way in regards to addressing, and the conversation that's out there right now with affordable housing, and it'll go a long way toward the record and contributing where the issue goes. So I just want to thank you all for your time today.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgerson.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I would like to take legislative resolution 287 CA separately.
We will.
And vote on the, okay. Just want to make a point of order.
I too want to thank everyone for being here, and especially those who have the courage to come forward and tell us your stories of where you were and where you are. And what I hope is that we hear more of those, because what we constantly hear is the negative. And what we need to hear and give people are those stories of success and a glimmer of hope that this can happen. You can become out of homelessness, and we have resources and help there, but people, again, we need to be more positive and hear from people who have actually done it, because whether you believe it or not, it does make a difference when they hear somebody else, a peer, they hear their story, that they have come out of homelessness and this is how they did it. We need more success to give that hope. And really, bottom line is the key in addressing homelessness should start with housing. And housing first scares a lot of people, but think about it. If you're homeless and you're worried about where you're going to sleep at night, you can't take care of or worry about the other issues that you need to tackle. But if we give them a warm place to lay at night and get up in the morning and work on those things, it's been proven that it is a successful way to intervene and help, much, much more than these punitive measures like criminalization. And in my opinion, this bill is nothing more than a copycat that's going around the country, both criminalizing homelessness as well as mental illness. So watch. I mean, I think Tennessee was the latest one I saw, which was almost identical to what we're looking at here in criminalizing homelessness. And so, again, I agree, there aren't enough resources. I also disagree with the comments that Commissioner Kavanaugh made, because he's misrepresenting what we're trying to do with those that are in our jail struggling with mental illness, and we can talk about that at a later date because it was wrong information. But with that, I do appreciate all the work that you do. You're out, you're the boots on the ground. You are the ones who are, again, doing the point in time, making contact, the street outreach, going out there when you get a call. And I've called on folks who I see are struggling, and the street outreach people come out and try to really help the individuals at where they are. And so I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you all for being here, and I really do hope that this legislation doesn't see the light of day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Borgerson. We had a request to take LR 287CA separately. which is again a constitutional amendment to require the legislature to compensate political subdivisions for any locally imposed revenue source that is reduced or eliminated by the legislature. Is there a motion and a second to support that one as listed on the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Borgeson, second by Rogers. We'll move to a vote. There's a comment by Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, I explained some of my reasoning in 4 minutes before. I've already rewritten legislative resolution 287C. Not that I'm cool or smart. I've already rewritten it 3 times in my head. I like the idea, but this thing isn't ready for prime time, especially if you're going to produce a constitutional amendment or a potential constitutional amendment. That's why I wanted it bracketed or taken separately. Again, like the idea. This isn't ready for prime time, just like those other 2 bills aren't either. Those unintended consequences I was talking about. So I'm going to abstain if we get an opportunity to, and we will. Legislative Resolution 287CA, I'm going to abstain, and then we'll take up the other 2. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll move to a vote.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before we vote, Marcos, the way the resolution is set up should make it pretty easy for us to bifurcate the vote here. So I pretty much plan on using the template that you submitted. We'll just make it specific to the support and the opposition. So, okay. Please vote.
No, it's just to support LR 287CA.
Motion passes. Commissioner Friend abstaining. All other commissioners voting yes.
All right, so if the board desires, we can take up LB 1357 on the camping/homelessness, and also LB 1375 related to county planning commissions and county boards and conditional use permits and special exceptions. Motion to oppose by Borgeson, second by Rogers. We'll move to a vote.
And just to be clear, you'd be voting yes to oppose the bill. So,
Correct. Thank
all right.
you.
Please vote. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Thanks everyone who came today. We'll move on in our agenda. There's no public hearings today. Committee discussion and action items. Under finance, 6A, we have A1 budget report as presented. Under B, administrative services, we have 2 items today related to the CM at risk model. This is an item that we saw, I think, back in December that we will take up again. We're gonna first discuss B2 because B2 is the one that authorizes the CM at risk. And if that moves forward, then B1 is related to who makes up the committee for CM at risk. So we're gonna take up B2. We have Mr. McGill who's gonna give a quick recap of what exactly CM at risk is and what we're approving there, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff McGill, Douglas County Public Properties. You're correct, this item is placed back on the agenda to seek the approval of a construction delivery method called Construction Manager at Risk, or CMAR. Public Properties think this is the best fit for this project for the Douglas County Department of Corrections Mental Health Project. Per the state statute, we do need it requires board approval. Contractually, the construction manager at risk will assume the legal responsibility to deliver the project within the contract price and also the schedule deadline. It also provides the CM at risk to attend and be part of the team during design. There's a lot of advantages advantages to that. One is the team effort, which talks about means and methods based off the architect engineer's design versus the contractor's experience. The other advantage is the selection is the most qualified firm versus a low bid in the bidding process. Real-time estimating. The CMAR is working with local subcontractors to get real-time costs throughout the project. So the budget that we establish, that's our target. The long-time purchase items for mechanical equipment and others, that can be identified. A lot of the equipment is 6 months to 12 months out. So if we can identify them early, get them here on site, will help the project completion date. And the completion date for this project is December 2026. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Jump to Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And I've had discussions with the chairman on this proposal. It is, as I indicated before, a jail construction for mentally ill people, and as such, not authorized by ARPA. We've received adequate legal opinions, both from our county attorney, from Deloitte, and from Mr. Fogarty, who I see is here today, all raising the specter of the inappropriateness of using ARPA funds to build or expand a jail, in this case, a mental health jail. And the danger there is that the $30+ million proposed to be expended on this mental health jail would be asked for back by the federal government, leaving us on the hook for a $30 million construction project. In addition, there's no anticipated cost of running this operation anywhere in any of these facilities. The committee designed, which has blanks for the commissioners and no mental health professionals whatsoever, are also kind of suspect. This is the construction of a jail project. There's no question about the fact that ARPA specifically prohibits construction, expansion of jails. We have time to do a thorough review of the utilization of these resources. You just heard from a bunch of people regarding the need for mental health services and for homeless shelters, that we could redirect the ARPA funds proposed inappropriately, in my opinion, here, to appropriate uses and avoid the threat of a federal money clawback. I also question the price of this proposal, which is skyrocketed since it was first discussed a year and a half ago. And the ideas going forward are simply a misuse of resources that we should be using, for instance, on our mental health campus at 42nd Street for people who are not part of the criminal justice system, and treat those people possibly as well as we propose to treat inmates of our jail. The idea here would also allow us to use resources to help alleviate some of the bad consequences of the kids' jail fiasco, specifically the fact that our Douglas County Youth Center, where all the children are held today, ran out of heat during the coldest day of the year in January, and we need to refurbish that facility, as has been advocated by me and others for years, because it's going to house our children going forward. You received a report, I think yesterday or Friday, from Ms. Habakati's office that shows the average daily population at 100 or more. This is way, way more than was predicted by the advocates of the kids' jail. It's way, way more than the capacity of the kids' jail, which is empty, of about 44 children. And it indicates that we're going to be using the 42nd Street Douglas County Youth Center for some time to come. We can use these resources effectively to deal with these problems that you heard discussed here, but we can't use them effectively if we're just going to expand our jail. I'm not sure we can use them legally if
Time.
we're just going to expand our jail. I'll come back.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's stay focused on what we're actually doing here today, okay? We should vote to approve this. I'll say that right out of the gate. One, we as a board, 7, 8 months ago, made a resolutionary decision. We made a decision, we voted on it, to take a portion of ARPA money, of ARPA dollars, and provide effective clinical space for people within our mandated care. We have no choice. They're there. 1,200 of them. A portion of those that have verifiable diagnosed mental health issues. A big portion of those. Last report we got was 48%. So, number two, if we do this project management piece, if we continue down this resolutionary road that this entire board voted to do, then we need a project management piece that's key to doing it when we do it. That's how you do this from a construction standpoint. Set aside the argument whether we should be building it, whether we shouldn't be building it. That's what we're dealing with today. We're putting project managers in place to get this thing done, or at least started in an appropriate fashion, and we're delaying it. Delaying it costs money too, by the way. Number three, I don't want to get too dramatic, but I've said this before in other meetings. I don't know if I've ever said it in public. Per capita, the Douglas County Corrections Center, our corrections center here in Douglas County, per capita, it's the largest mental health clinical provider in the state of Nebraska. Let that sink in. The Douglas County Corrections Center is the largest clinical provider of mental health services in the state of Nebraska per capita. You know how we got there? In the 1970s, nationwide in the 1970s, communities, states, the federal government moved away from an institutional-based care model. They said, this isn't the way we should do this. Well, then guess what happened after that? St. Joe Hospital, I was at Creighton University at the time, they took probably 75 to 80% of the indigent care, which also meant a good portion of the mental health issues. They were showing up right at St. Joe's doorstep. You know what it was St. Joe then. Do you know what Creighton University, UNMC, Methodist, everybody else that were dabbling around in this business, you know what they did? They got out of the business. You know why? Because they couldn't make any money. Now, I'm not saying they're greedy. They're trying to help people too. But how are you going to help people when you don't have any money? I don't blame them. This was an institutional decision nationwide back in the 1970s. And now at our doorstep, our corrections folks, what we're in charge of, have been put in a position where we have to try to provide expert clinical care in a jail. What's being asked right now is to try to come up with a project management plan. That's what's actually happening today. A project management plan to try to provide in going forward in a longer term capacity
20 seconds.
to deal, thank you, Mr. Chair, to deal with the problem that was thrown in our lap back in the 70s. In the 80s, it got worse, and now we have to clean it up. Can we? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I will take a quick round myself. Please start my clock. Corrections Director Myers, if you could come up real quick, please. So we know that the CM at risk proposal relates to the project for the mental health wing being discussed. So on that very topic, Director Myers, could you give a brief overview of how in your opinion, this wing will indeed enhance mental health services for the incarcerated?
Absolutely, Commissioner. Michael Myers, Director of Corrections for Douglas County. This proposed, well, it's no longer, this planned addition is to provide care for people who are already in our custody. And it has 2 different floors which are designated towards 2 different levels of care. One floor is dedicated towards those who are mentally ill and dangerous. We haven't been able to stabilize them yet. Maybe they're not compliant with taking medications. We have them for an extended period of time. These are often the folks who are ordered for LRC evaluations, which take months for them to come to fruition. So they're in our custody for an extended period of time. This provides a safer environment for them, a safer environment for our staff, and a more therapeutic element that's incorporated throughout the construction. That's critical because the last portion of the jail that was built was constructed in 2004, 2005, probably planned a couple of years before that. It did not consider the realities that we're facing today. It did not consider the fact that our most recent stepping up data indicates not only that 48% of our population has a mental illness, but that 29% of them have a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia and other untreated conditions. So the upper floor of this addition is to address another problem that's grown dramatically, and I presented the board data on this at our last Board of Corrections meeting, that in over a 3-year period, our number of individuals who are placed on suicide watch and our number of individuals who are going through drug and alcohol withdrawal protocols both have not quite doubled, but nearly doubled in nearly a 2-year span, or excuse me, a 3-year span. Right now, all those folks are crammed into our infirmary, which was not designed for that. It also takes away from our ability to focus on the medically fragile individuals when we have to have that, because those folks going through withdrawal, need that high level of nursing and medical care as well. So this proposal takes people who are that we attempt to treat in a building that wasn't designed for it, and enables us to, I believe, to have much better outcomes, much better safety, and it's a humane response for something that's already occurring. This is not something new that's going to occur because we built it. It's already in the jail. The fact that there's 48% out of approximately nearly 1,100 people in our custody who have a mental illness, and nearly 1 in 3 have a serious mental illness. It's already here. This is just us being able to provide more humane and effective treatment for them while they're there.
Thank you, Director Myers. I'm going to loop back. For now, I will go to Commissioner Kavanaugh and then Commissioner Friend.
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments of my colleagues and Director. The problems are, more than what I just expressed in my initial statement regarding the financial risk that we run by expanding the jail in flagrant disregard of ARPA prohibitions of expanding jail with ARPA money. This also expands the operation of the jail, and we've talked about this before. You can build it, then you got to run it. And there's been no consideration, no projections, no numbers that we've seen relative to running this. I'd point out that I don't know about everybody else, but I didn't authorize spending $30+ million on a jail expansion for mentally ill people. I proposed something quite different, using existing facilities at the Correction Center and spending most of the money to expand our mental health services for people who aren't incarcerated at the 42nd Street Douglas County Health Center campus. I think we already run that, and we already staff that, and we already have a building there. So the proposal here is kind of like the kids' jail proposal for building a big facility with no idea of how we're going to run it, what it's going to cost to run it. There's no statutory requirement for these services. There's statutory requirement that we incarcerate people who are convicted or held on bond by the courts, but not these services. And there's no staff to provide these services, and there's no projected cost over time to provide these unmandated services to inmate population. So, you know, for all of those reasons, in addition to the fact that the single largest health condition faced by the largest number of inmates at our correction center is drug and alcohol related, chemical dependency. This does nothing for that. The biggest single health condition of our 1,000+ inmates is drug and alcohol related. This does nothing for that. We could do that, and we do on a very small level right now, inside the existing correction center facility. And if we wanted to impact people, we would have the most impact there because people aren't here for a long time. You're not going to impact people with long-term mental health conditions in a short-term setting. You are going to impact people with alcohol and drug conditions if they're going to be there for 30 days or so, because that's exactly what happens in the real world with real positive effect in the treatment centers around this country. So if we wanted to do something for people who have drug and alcohol conditions that relate to their mental health, we could do it for a lot less than this building proposal that's going to have real problems with the federal government and the Treasury Department going forward. All I'm saying is, let's not make the same mistake that we made before on the
30 seconds.
kids' jail fiasco. Let's take a breath. We could lay this over easily. We have plenty of time. And let's include some mental health practitioners in this proposed committee rather than just make another construction project that's going to be really questionable going forward. I think, you know, what we need to do is step back and look at all of the options that we have rather than plunge forward and potentially do the same
Time.
damage that we did with the kids' jail fiasco. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll jump to Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due diligence has been done. Expert consultants and legal opinions indicate that this is not a risk. We can have a parade of people, and Commissioner Kavanaugh can make fun of the kid, what he calls the kids' jail. By the way, he was here when all that occurred. I wasn't. So I can't speak as specifically as he can to it, even though I watched it from afar. I can tell you this. I have information that shows there are at least 20 jurisdictions around the country doing exactly the same thing that we're doing with the ARPA money that was distributed. I don't know if anybody was listening to me, but the first time around, didn't I explain why? In the 1970s and 80s, the people got out of the business. The communities got out of the business. And now we're in the business. And we're mandated to be in the business. Commissioner Kavanaugh can talk all day long about nobody else in the country doing this. This is unheard of. There's going to be clawback. Baloney. Ohio and Texas are two examples. There's a jurisdiction in Texas spending $127 million of ARPA money because their jails are overflowing. They can't send these people back out on the streets because they violated a state law, and they have to provide services. We're running it, and by the way, we're running that right now in our corrections facility. We're running these services right now, and I would argue that there are mandates, state and federal, in order that we have to do that. I'll go out and find them. I'll bring them next time we have this debate, and we'll continue the debate. We're running it right now, and we're paying for it right now. Will there be more pointed and effective care if or when this gets done? Yes, there will. Does that mean cost added or cost benefit? We're going to dig into that too. Commissioner Kavanaugh points out the drug and alcohol related problems that we have at the correction center. Fair enough. Are you telling me that's true? Are you telling me that they are mutually exclusive? Are you telling me that people that are detained for a period of time and potentially incarcerated, are you telling me that drug and alcohol issues are mutually exclusive to mental health issues? I would argue, and I am not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, I would argue that that is baloney too. You can track, you can find out, and you can say, how many of these people are self-medicating because they have some of these issues? Bipolarism, some psychosis of some nature. Do you know what people will do if they don't have the resources? Hate to say it and be so crass, but they're going to turn to Jim Beam or whatever else they need to do to make themselves feel better. Look, we're going in circles here. We either need the type of clinical care that they're already providing that's going to make it more efficient, or we're going to throw our hands up and go, well, let's go ahead and let Sienna Francis and everybody else handle, oh, by the way, they don't have any money. So guess what happens? They're going to end up back in our corrections facility anyway, and we don't have the services to provide or the most effective clinical services to provide. I am tired of this banter that indicates that we are unwisely spending federal dollars. I know what it looks like when we're not spending money wisely. Under these circumstances, if we do these things right, I don't believe that's the case.
10 seconds.
And I will debate it until the cows come home, and I'll try to, before I get too angry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Fred. We'll jump to Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are not expanding the jail. We are not building a jail for the mentally ill. What we're doing is spending dollars, ARPA dollars, to build a mental health facility that will be serving those that are incarcerated. Period. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Borgeson. I will take my second round. So when we have 48% of our population with a mental health illness or diagnosis, it's a matter of how much do we care about that? How much do we want to provide them the services that they need while they're under our care? We don't request for anybody to be under our care. We don't say, bring that person to jail, we'll take them. They come to us through judges and court systems and prosecutions and all of that, right? So, but when they're in our care, they're literally in our care for that time. So it's a matter of how much do we care about the fact that almost half of the population has a mental health illness or diagnosis. How much do we want to efficiently serve that, or just say, here's your daily pill and good luck with your mental health illness? So to me, this is a matter of caring and trying to do it well. And we can't say there's no mental health practitioners involved. I mean, I'm proud that our corrections director is literally a licensed mental health practitioner. He's an LMHP, he has one. And he brings a different tone, not just to this topic, but to his service as corrections director, and I'm proud of that. So it's a matter of caring. We provide other services to the incarcerated. Should we stop doing those things too? We provide educational services. We help people get their high school diplomas. We provide medical care for physical ailments. And we're trying to do the mental health care better. That's what it's about. So I do care about individuals who come in with mental health illnesses. I do care that the fact that we have individuals who, while incarcerated, do things to harm themselves. And how much do we care about that? How much do we want to address the mental illness that's going on at that moment that causes them to do things like that? And it's not an uncommon occurrence, unfortunately. And it's sad. How much do we care about that? I care about it. And so, yeah, it's a tough balance to allocate this much to such a project, but such a project is clearly needed when half of our incarcerated population has a mental health illness. Something is going on in society that is causing that. Obviously, we want to get to those root causes as well, and there'll be other efforts to address community mental health, not just by us, but we're a sliver of the community mental health, providers in the community. We have many partners that, of course, care about this deeply as well, which we will continue to tackle at a broader level. But again, people who are incarcerated are under our care. How much do we want to officially serve their mental health diagnosis and illness while they're under our care? It's a tough balance for me. As mentioned, of course, this is part of my district. I'm going to have my work cut out for me in regards to, caring about the aesthetics of downtown, the development of downtown and the urban core, working well with our businesses that are very close nearby, our corrections facility. I'm going to make a lot of effort to make sure that we're working well with them and having that partnership with them. So I do have my work cut out for me on that end, but I do see the value in this project. And I do care about those individuals that are under our care and serving them better and striving to have a warm, positive handoff upon leaving our center to further mental health providers in the community, and we can put that emphasis in there as well. So, thank you. Yes, I'll take a motion in a second. Motion by Borgerson, second by Boyle. Was there any further commentary from the public?
Ed Fogarty, can you hear me? Ed Fogarty, 521 North 38th Street, retired lawyer. You've been hearing from me orally and on paper for about 8 months now. I'm going to give each copies for your bedside reading table at home, the things I've written for you in the past. I gave you one January 8th. Delivered it that day. There was a heck of a blizzard there, so you've had that a while. Now, the interesting thing is the law I've put in here is not my law. It's what the ARPA statute says. ARPA statute doesn't give you one dime for capital expenditures, but it gives you about 20 uses across health, mental health, behavioral health. But it didn't say specifically you can't use our money. And make no doubt about it, you're not using your own money, or you're using borrowed money with strings attached. You're using somebody else's money, federal government money here. So because they didn't say in the statutes that no capital expenditures, the Treasury Department was very nice about the scope of this law and what they wanted to do. They wanted to help, first of all, COVID stuff, and then they put out some overviews and some regulations, and they spent a lot of time on it. And before people like out in Douglas County and out in Texas, where they, Commissioner Friend, they're spending $400 million on $1 billion prison of ARPA money, and it's being challenged in the law. It'll take a while to work out, as are the 20 other jurisdictions that are up to the same game that Douglas County is. And it'll be worked out in the courts, where people will get wise and bring their spending of ARPA money back into compliance with the law. Now, the big thing I want to show you about that January 8th thing was I stumbled on this. I've done a lot of work for free. Deloitte's charged $2 million, and all they did was point out the problem with the jails and then give you a process, but no data or no arguments that get you through the loopholes that you're trying to get through. Now, a good lawyer will show you loopholes and show you how you got through them, but I'm showing you those loopholes are all closed to you. But I want to specifically bring up that page 2 of the document you're going to get. I stumbled on the overview, or the deal that the State Department of Health and Human Services
30 seconds.
taking the same fund that you did, and it did it correctly. It said a limit of capital expenditures on some behavioral health, 250 of a $2,250,000 of a $2.5 million project. They said none can go over $1 million. They covered 17 projects, and they gave the people like you would be the county board or some of these people that have these projects an overview. What you people did not do before you started spending the money, ask Deloitte to give you the overview of what you could do with the government's money, not your money. So just wait till it's clawed back when the dust settles 2 or 3 years from now, or form a committee and do it right.
That was time.
Am I done?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Who has
Commissioner
a
Friend.
question? Somebody want a question?
Yeah, I have a
Yes, sir.
question, Mr. Fogarty. So do you think, you've laid out some interesting stuff here, and I've read it before. Do you think that we're in no way being responsive to COVID and the impacts of the pandemic?
I think that the ARPA statute, Congress made behavioral health, substance abuse well within what they thought it was. And then you did not need to go any further. But as I understood the project, as it was coming down line from this board, we were going to take care of the most seriously mentally ill people. Now, that was going to be...
And pardon me,
Yes.
and I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought. So you're saying that the most intensely mentally ill, it wasn't necessarily exacerbated or caused by the pandemic?
That I would say Congress didn't give that definition in the statute. Then you're stuck with what Treasury said on the regulations. And now you're stuck with what 20 jurisdictions around the country, like Douglas County, Texas, Texas is trying it, Alabama's in litigation. You're rolling some dice.
Has that money in Texas been clawed back?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Well, just,
That's
okay,
all I have.
okay.
That's all I have, thanks.
Okay, I'll just write them about December 31st if you want me to.
One thing that I wanted to point out, Mr. Fogarty, I do not need to be lectured about whose money this is. I know. I firmly know. It's not my money. Do you really think anybody on this board, I don't mean to think that you are trying to insult me.
No, I'm not.
I'm saying that if you think that I believe I can do, or anybody on this board thinks that we can do whatever we want because it's our money, you're sorely mistaken.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we...
Well, just a second. I take a point of personal pride
No,
here.
I'm not hectoring. No, I was being
Commissioner
lectured.
Friend is finishing his final term.
He pointed out.
Just a second. I've been
He
hectored by
pointed out.
judges
No,
all
no,
my
no,
life.
Mr. Fogarty, I'm not hectoring you.
I know.
Commissioner Friend has 90 seconds left.
Okay.
I'll determine if he's germane still or not.
Thank you.
90
I'm
seconds
not,
left.
with all due respect, I'm not hectoring you. I'm saying that you had made the point that it's not our money. I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I want you to know that we know that. So I'm not hectoring you. This whole thing's been going on a long time, okay? And it bubbles up, and I don't mean to offend. I got a few more minutes.
Because I'm gonna have this now.
Yeah.
You can have a third turn if you want as well.
Opening this door.
We've been debating this for an awful long time, and I do respect your opinion, and I'm not backtracking. What I'm saying is there are a lot of things that have been said, and I've never personally responded. I've never personally necessarily responded to them. Even with Commissioner Kavanaugh, I haven't had much debate about it. this debate has to happen. I agree with him, and I agree with you. It has to happen. My point is, don't expect me not to debate about it. I'm going to. And I resent the idea that it's hectoring. Debate is different than hectoring. I would say that he didn't know what he was talking about. I haven't said that because I think that he does. So I was asking him some pertinent questions. And I do appreciate your input, and you're welcome to come back up here anytime. That being said, I'm trying to figure out where we draw the dichotomy between a pandemic that actually raised those numbers in our corrections facility up to 48% last month. Whereas 3 years ago, when I got on this board, they were closer to 21%.
That's time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Friend. As a reminder, we did change the rules in January to allow for a third term for commissioners, though technically, I think we're still working out the clock. That third term is supposed to be 2 minutes, so we need to figure that out. But we do have 3 terms now in regards to speaking, or rounds better stated.
Well, that's great, because I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the interchange. No, Mr. Fogarty, don't go away.
Okay.
I have read your briefs as well, and thank you for being a responsible citizen and warning us of the dangers here. The quick review that you put in your January 8th, 2024 one, the project fails the Treasury presumption that ARPA funds cannot be used to build a jail. That's your point. ARPA funds cannot be used to build a jail.
Yes. That's...
Okay, and if they are inappropriately used to build a jail, and this jail doesn't exist right now and it's going to be built, so that's building a jail. What does the Treasury Department do when they find that you've inappropriately used ARPA funds to build a jail? What's the consequence?
They ask for the money back. And if
They
you don't
ask for the money back?
politely, then they go to court if they have to, and it will give you an opportunity to show your good faith. And there's plenty of good faith here, but you've been warned that there is legal defects. But yeah, they take your money back. Might be able to negotiate they want $30 million back. You might be able to negotiate.
Okay, so they're, we're running the risk of them
It's
asking
litigation.
for $30+ million back.
It's fighting.
And you note in here, the follow-up, all, emphasis, the law and commentary by Treasury and learned commentators, including NACO, disqualify ARPA grants to build jails. And you footnote that quite effectively.
30 seconds.
So that's your point.
That's my point.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate you taking the time out of your life to not only give us this information, but to come down here like a responsible citizen. And you should be respected for that. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't see any disrespect. I see vigorous argument.
And thank you, Mr. Fogarty. Thank you, Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Friend, do you have a point of clarification?
We get 2 more minutes, correct?
No, you actually.
1 minute?
You already spoke 3 times, actually.
Did I?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Borgeson, go for it.
Just, again, I need to say it, we are not building a jail. We are building a mental health facility to serve those that are incarcerated with mental illness.
Thank you, Commissioner Borgeson. Other public comments?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I think I know where this is going. So I'm not, just want to point out some things. Can I give this to you, Mr. Chair, or
Sure.
the Ford got this for the deputy attorney, Robert's Rules of Order, simplified.
Okay.
You can give it to her if you want to. So, Commissioner Frentz said some interesting things, saying that this is going to be a project manager. The new position was going to be a construction manager, project manager, excuse me. If that's the case, I hope that we get some standard documents and instruments for project management. And I appreciate that. I would like to see this individual be public about his ideas and stuff. So if the public can engage with the construction manager at risk, I think that would be all right. And I think on the money, you decided you're going to do $50 million on mental health. I don't think the public really thinks that building building a facility at corrections is going to like have an impact on mental health. I think that it's going to make correctional personnel do their job easier if you separate populations. So if you're doing this for the correctional personnel, I think that makes sense. But don't talk about like you're going to do something for community mental health, because I don't think the community was asking for a facility at jail for community mental health. I think they were asking for a facility outside of corrections, definitely. You have a facility for community mental health, and it's not trauma informed. If you want to talk about building something that is trauma informed, that facility over on by Woolworth is not trauma informed. It's very old. It stinks. I've been in there. I think you need to support that service as well. And then so you have $50 million. You haven't spent it. As I understand the law for ARPA funds is the executive of the jurisdiction has to certify that these funds are being spent appropriately. You've already spent other ARPA funding. Did you go through that process? I know the Commissioner Borgeson was the chair. Did she certify the previous expenditures? Did Patrick certify? Who's certifying it? That when you spend the money that you're doing appropriately. I'd like to know. Are you going to certify these $50 million? Is that how you're handling the legality of spending the money appropriately? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Leclerc, down the road in Bellevue. I just want to briefly thank you for the conversation this morning on the legislative laws. That was really productive. Appreciate the education and that conversation. And I also just want to say thank you for defending the public's right to speak in 1375 on that one too. So I appreciate that. I'm here just to, again, encourage you maybe to slow down on this. I have been coming for 6 years. I have been here. I've observed very much and learned even more. And the big lesson, I think, is to listen to people and slow down. We have an empty building over here that is concerning. The recent numbers I've heard for the DCYC is a low of 95, a high of 103, an average daily population of 99. We heard over and over how this building was the program. It's built. It's not helping. Only 12 have been accepted into the home program. That's for January of this year, out of the 99 average daily population. So I find that very concerning, and just really encourage you to look at that and not spend all the money yet again on a building. I could not agree more. Commissioner Kavanaugh, having not spoken to him about this, it's just, he said everything I was going to say. And Black History Month, we are locking up so many Black people. So to think about that. And are we really, just like the kids' jail, are we really offering programs to prevent people from landing in these facilities and having to build more, which is, again, not helping the people? Like my mom would recommend say on the 132 million, the largest fiscal expenditure in Douglas County history, without a vote of the people, without most people even knowing it was happening. That's 132 million before one kid, one family is helped. And you're getting ready to do it again, 30 million. As someone just recently said to me, you might as well burn the money on building again. I just encourage you to focus on the actual programs, spending the money that way. We heard so many people come up here asking for our help and asking you to not criminalize those with mental health issues and homeless issues. So again, just like the Juvenile Justice Center, I encourage you to look at your community, work with your community. There's so many wonderful people out there and so wise. And I just think we could always do a better job. So again, I thank you for allowing me to come up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Well, finally, we've had what I consider a discussion back and forth. Not just we will have that discussion one way. That's what Mr. Ben Gray used to say. We will have that discussion on racism. But it was never a two-way discussion. It was just hot air. So thank you for this today. But I think this kind of proves to you that it's kind of dangerous for you to be doing away with citizens' comments. Now, citizens can understand clearly that they can do this. That's a different matter. You need to define discussion versus hearing versus on the agenda. If it doesn't say you can't speak, you can't speak. You need to be clear. Mr. Kavanaugh likes to have a discussion. But you can at any time have a discussion with anybody that you want. You've done it many times. But you've also neglected many people that have some pretty good information for you. And sometimes, well, this body's not so bad. But one of the other bodies likes to make snide remarks about people. Oh, we don't like that guy. But we have somebody up there that represents a county attorney that's supposed to enforce the Open Meetings Act. What does that mean? You know, you can call an emergency meeting on that and settle that right today. Take a lunch break and have the county attorney come down here. The Attorney General told me that, we're not going to get involved in county business.
Larry, I'm going to need you to keep it to the topic of the CMAT risk.
Having a discussion's not even possible with an Attorney General of the state of Nebraska. But they're taking away our election rights. We need to discuss that too. That is your job to discuss those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Any others? If not, we have a motion and a second. We'll move the vote.
Motion passes. Commissioner Kavanaugh voting no, other commissioners voting yes.
Yep.
On both at once?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was number 2,
Okay.
which creates the CMAT risk model and committee. Well, it allows for it, rather. Number 1 is specifying who will serve on that committee now that we approve the CMAT risk model to move forward. So you have a resolution for you that outlines how this committee could be made up. If I'm not mistaken, I think there is interest from the finance chair and the criminal justice chair, Commissioners Morgan and Friend, to be considered, but it's up to the board to choose 2 board members to serve on the committee and alongside the other individuals listed on the resolution. With that being said, all right, are you so moving the 2 commissioners mentioned? Second by Boyle. Discussion on that? Otherwise, we'll move to the vote. Vote.
This is on the resolution as is.
Resolution with the two commissioners mentioned, Commissioner Morgan and Commissioner Friend,
Okay. All right.
inserted into the blanks.
I see. Okay. You may vote now. Thank you. Motion passes. Commissioner Kavanaugh voting no. All other commissioners voting yes.
Thank you. We'll move on. Other committee business. Item G was weekly personnel report from civil service as presented. And before we move into executive session, I do want to mention that Douglas County offices will be closed Monday, February 19th, 2024, in observance of President's Day, and also that the Douglas County Board of Commissioners will not meet on Tuesday, February 13th, and Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. The next scheduled meeting of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners will be Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. I do believe we have need for executive session for legal advice, litigation, and labor negotiations. Anything else? All right, with that, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
So moved to go into executive.
Motion by Morgan, second by Rogers. Please vote.
Commissioners, before I have you vote, I just wanted to enter in the record. I meant to do it during the discussion on LB 1357. There were two individuals that sent emails in yesterday, which you were provided, Cassandra Griffin and Cammie Watkins of Inclusive Communities, both encouraging basically how you voted today on LB 1357. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Clerk.
and you may vote.
Vote on executive session.
Motion passes 7-0.
The board is now moving into executive session for legal advice, litigation, and labor negotiation.
Recording stopped.